The topic today is where tomorrow begins. And every moment of every day, whether you're awake, whether you're asleep, whether you're paying attention, tomorrow begins now. Now is that vanishingly small moment, that little sliver of time that is pressed between an unchangeable past and an unknowable future. It is as if we were strapped to the front of a runaway train, staring into the gaping maw of an abyss, waiting to find out if rocks are going to fall out of the sky, if the phone's going to ring in the middle of the night, markets are going to crash. And as the 20th century economist Ludwig Lochmann used to say throughout his career, the future is unknowable, but it's not unimaginable. So in that spirit, maybe we could say that tomorrow began in 1980 with the publication of an essay with the title "Toward the Next Economics" by Peter Drucker. Drucker was the father of management science, the creator of the MBA. And Drucker pointed out that our understanding of economics has changed over the centuries, and that the economic theory that applied at one point in history, because of technological change and because of changes in social institutions, didn't work anymore. And so he goes back to the mercantilists centuries ago, who argued that the purpose of economic activity is to maximize the amount of gold and silver in the prince's treasury, and that the prince should control huge tracts of land in order to extract agricultural products for export, extract minerals from the earth, and wealth from wells. We get up to the 1760s with Anders Chydenius, who was working in what we now know as Finland, who was part of the Swedish kingdom at the time. And then a decade later, Adam Smith, who argued, not so much that. The wellspring of wealth is industry, division of labor, specialization. We get up to the mid-1800s, and Marx argued that, yes, we do live in an industrial society, but bear in mind that the owner of the capital tools, the capitalist, has a disproportionate amount of power compared to each of the individual laborers. And then we come up to the 1870s. Menger, Jevons, and Walras argued that the source of value is not the amount of effort that you put into creating something that I do wish that my students would internalize before an exam. But value comes from the relative scarcity of supply and how much people want it, demand. So value comes from the fact that there's not much of something that a lot of people want, regardless of how much effort goes into producing it. If effort produced value, then we could all get up right now, go out in the parking lot, each of us pick a palm tree and push against it for a few hours and walk away richer. You get up to the 1930s, and Keynes turned his back on real things and focused on the short-term effects that government policy can have on fictitious symbols, the unemployment rate, the money supply, aggregate demand, things like that. And so in 1980, Drucker argued that this doesn't work because we don't live in that world anymore. We live in a world in which not only is land not one of the most important economic drivers, granted we almost need it for it, but in classical economics, the three factors of production are land, labor, and capital. Sometime in the 20th century, we would discuss land maybe in the first chapter of Econ 101, but beyond that, it was the capital-labor trade-off. You get up to the 1980s, and it's already beginning to show that this distinction doesn't work anymore. Think about that for a moment. The great fortunes of today are being made with Facebook, Google, YouTube, You walk into a software shop, and the value of the computer, the scrap value is nil. We depreciate the things in 3 years. The software development tools, free. If you want to do animation, download Blender, free. If you want to edit audio, free. Video, free. You want to write contracts, LibreOffice or OpenOffice. Then you can take that text and you can digitally sign that with your Bitcoin wallet. So it's got a signature. Bitcoin isn't cool because of the transactions. It's cool because you can sign contracts and there's this publicly available key. And in my field, finance, so much of what we do is contracts. An employment arrangement is a contract. A prospectus is a contract between an entrepreneur and shareholders. And prospectuses spawn shares. Bonds, the contracts. An insurance policy is a contract. Options, futures, all of it's contracts. So I can write that up, I can digitally sign that, and out it goes, free. 13 years later, Drucker published a thin volume that he called Post-Capitalist Society, in which he fleshed this out. I encourage everyone to get a used copy off of AbeBooks or half.com, or wherever you get your used books, and read this book. It reads like a playbook of what has transpired over the past 2 decades. It's incredible. And we live in a world in which it is no longer who controls the most land. It is no longer the Dickensian factory owner or the character from the Ayn Rand novel who controls the means of production. It's knowledge. Your skills, your abilities, and all of these lovely, lovely free tools. And then you can put them onto your laptop computer or your tablet. You can put a lot of them on your phone, and then go hang out at Panera and use their Wi-Fi for free. And you're a multinational firm with a payment system. Whoa. Your capital. Tomorrow began. We're already about, this is tomorrow afternoon. We've been there. All that's missing is my flying car. If your employer is treating you like an expense to be minimized, you're a cost center. No, you're capital. You're to be maintained, polished and cleaned, and taken down so that you don't get burned out. And if they're not treating you that way, then don't get a job. Be a job. I want you to do something. I want you to do this for me. Not now. Definitely not now. When you get home, make sure that there is no open window or open door behind you. Okay? Nobody's standing behind you. I want you to open your computer, and I want you to think the most shocking and outrageous thing that you can think. Doesn't matter how perverted or disgusting or whatever. Something just right off the top of your head. Then I want you to look for it on the internet. And I'll bet you 9 times out of 10, you will find that there's a subculture based around this very thing. And it probably even has competing factions that don't talk to each other. Like, you're supposed to wear blue when you're doing it. No, you're supposed to wear red. And if this shocking, awful thing that you just came up with already has a community around it that is potentially large enough for you to build a business supplying them, not that you necessarily want to, ask yourself this. What would I do if I won the lottery? How would you spend your day? You're not the only one. There's 7 billion of them out there. You don't need but a few to make a viable market. Think about that. The most outrageous thing that you think of, there's probably a community out there. Now, the thing that you would actually do, which potentially would be that, I guess. We're in South Florida. There's enough of a market out there for you to make a living doing this thing that you want to do, and the tools are free. You are the capital. You are the source of value. You are the wellspring of all that is good in this world. And don't think of yourself so much as an accumulator of capital, like a 1980s yuppie. Think of yourself more as a healer. Whatever problem irritates you the most, you're not the only one. You want to rescue stray dogs in the Everglades? There's already a bunch of people who go down there to do that. Join them. Or if you want to make gourmet dog biscuits, take your gourmet dog biscuits down. There's a bunch of gourmet dogs down in the Everglades. Whatever. I know a lady who makes her living from sewing dresses for pugs. Little dogs with pushed-in faces. She makes like little steampunk things for them. Little wedding gowns. And there's like the subculture of people who have pugs, and then they stand them up and they take pictures and put them on websites. And she's a lovely lady. I adore her. I absolutely adore her. But it's just like, there are no bad business ideas. There's no such thing as a bad business idea. There's not having enough money to get you through the startup phase. When my grandfather was born more than 100 years ago, the way they got around in his hometown was horse-drawn buggies. And during his lifetime, he saw the advent of cars, and eventually then airplanes. And I'm talking about like barnstorming type stuff. And then eventually, regularly scheduled airlines. He saw the building of the interstate highway system. See, a lot of people don't realize that they haven't started that thing in the 1950s. We take it for granted. It's always, I-95 has always been, no, it's new-ish. The atomic bomb. Men walking on the moon. Skylab. Crashing. It was really not bad. And he died right around the time that the Space Shuttle Challenger exploded. Reusable spacecraft. Holy smokes. And it's only getting faster. Just look what happens, what's going on in the Middle East. Look what's happening all around the world. And it's only getting faster. And now, armed with little more than a telephone, you're a multinational firm. Tomorrow started back, if not 1980, it began in the mid-1990s. Where let's go out for tea. This is tomorrow afternoon. So basically, don't ask yourself what the most practical thing is that you can do. In my day, it was learn to be a programmer because people are going to hire you to write software. Now, being able to write software is the 21st century literacy. You can't sell that as a marketable skill. You need it, but you can't sell people the fact that you can read a newspaper. You need to know how to read. You need to know how to write software. But as far as the software shop is concerned, that was the thing that they sent to India right after the call centers. So people my age dedicated their lives to a career that was emailed around the world. The generation before me was plastics. I don't know what the practical thing is for you to do next week. I don't even know what I'm having for lunch tomorrow. So, if you're looking for something practical as some advice for the future, all I can tell you is just follow the entrepreneurial thread that we've seen all around us. Basically, be the job. Don't get a job. So, my advice to everybody here is follow your heart. Be on the business side of what you love most. Let the money take care of itself and invest accordingly.